Good morning, everyone. My name is Nancy D., and I'm your alternate delegate for the state of New Hampshire. What a pleasure to be here today and to share this weekend with everyone. And, you know, I was thinking, as Trish was speaking too, about hope. And it's, you know, it's so wonderful to have that hope the first day when you walk into that meeting like I did, and carried throughout the years that I've spent in Al-Anon and continue to share and get recovery in this program. And I remember early on that, you know, the acronym for HOPE was hearing other people's experiences. And that's what it is today that I have the privilege of doing, is announcing your speakers for this morning's spiritual meeting. So without further ado, I want to introduce our first speaker, Jeremy T., who's going to be our AA spiritual speaker this morning. And Jeremy and I both share the same town for home groups, which is Keene, New Hampshire. And it was really nice getting to meet him in the Al-Anon open workshop yesterday, which was really nice. And speaking a little bit this morning about his home group, which is the Keene Big Book Step Meeting on Sundays. So I welcome Jeremy.
Hi everyone, my name is Jeremy. I'm an alcoholic. It's really great to be here. It's really a privilege and an honor to be asked to speak at any meeting, and this is a special treat. I'd like to thank Paul for asking, my friends Ken and Cheryl, I'm sure they had something to do with that, Trish for coordinating this whole thing, and Nancy, that lovely introduction. This is my first trip to the White Mountains. It's very serene, mountains of Serenity, you bet. It's my first Al-Anon convention, although I've been to meetings before. And yesterday I did get to experience my first Al-Anon meeting. And it was wicked cool. Thank you very much for putting that on and inviting us in. It was something that I'd wanted to participate and witness for quite a while now. And I'd like to thank everybody who had a hand in putting this on. It's a labor of love. It's not always easy. I'm the host for NISKIPA, which is the New Hampshire State Conference for Young People in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I currently am on the advisory chair for that same committee. And it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. More about that later. So I thank God for the Big Book and sponsorship, because I'm like, what am I supposed to do? It's an Al-Anon meeting. What am I going to say? And I find my instructions, as I always do, every single time right in here. I'm to tell you in a general way. That's how our stories go, in a general way. It's basically what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And also the personal stories in this book. It says that each individual shares from their own point of view, using their own language, how they established a relationship with God. And as my sponsor often reminds me, that it is my job to share my experience and share it honestly, especially when I'm in jail, because guys in jails, they just don't want to listen to me, and I think that they should. Who's going home, buddy? Huh? They still won't listen. I don't get it. Whatever. It's just, but see, like, I'll debate it and analyze and all this other stuff, and I'll pound on that table and all this other stuff. It's just my job to show up, share my experience, and share it honestly. That's it. That's what I have to offer. And it's especially important because sometimes I like to share my opinion, and those aren't very helpful, especially to me. And so I need to be honest, because alcoholism is a dishonest illness, extremely dishonest. Left to my own devices, I'm incapable of being honest. But with God's help, hopefully, and I have asked him to come and speak through me. So, I don't know if I was born an alcoholic. I don't really care. I do know that I had this spiritual malady as far back as I can remember, and I remember a lot. I have a really vivid memory, and so as far back as I can go, I remember I was just uncomfortable, always uncomfortable, full of fear. I know I didn't fit in. There's definitely, like, what is wrong with me? Always, I know there's something wrong with me. What is wrong with me? And I just didn't feel right in my own skin, and I was full of tremendous amounts of fear. But the thing is, so I have this basically low-level discomfort all the time. And I don't know it, because that's the only thing I've ever experienced. It's the only thing. So if you're just wicked uncomfortable and full of fear and like thinking everybody's thinking about you all the time, you don't even know it. So I had no idea how uncomfortable I was until I got comfortable which is the first time I got drunk. The first time I got drunk, I was at my parents' house. They had gone away for the weekend, and my sister, who was older than me, threw a high school party. And prior to that, I had a very low opinion of alcohol and those that drank it. It just seemed really dumb. They were loud, they were obnoxious, and a lot of my friends drank. And I was like, wow, that looks really dumb. I'm not going to do it. And I just had this poor opinion. And there was this girl, she had a crush on me, I don't know why. And she gave me a drink, and I took it. And very shortly thereafter, I started feeding myself very rapidly. And I got extremely drunk. I made out with her on the couch in front of everyone. Pretty sure I got to second base. And the entire party got up and left. And I walked out. And my sister was extremely embarrassed. I was that drunk kid at that high school party. Why did you invite him? And I made a muck, and I was literally swinging from the rafters in that house, and I was running around hiding under tables. 3 large men had to forcibly put me to bed. I had already thrown up. And I woke up the next morning hungover like you wouldn't believe, mortified, extremely embarrassed that I had done everything. And I told myself, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to do that again. Unfortunately, I'm a real alcoholic, though, and shortly thereafter, I got into an argument with my dad. I ran away from home. I developed a near bottle a day habit. I tried 4 or 5 drugs the first time with less than a week, and I was off and running. And that's pretty much how high school went. I did graduate, and then I went upstate to a local community. I went to community college first, and then went upstate. And about this time, before I moved upstate, I had ventured in. I grew up in Rockland County, New York, so I had ventured into New York City and started to explore and indulge everything that New York had to offer. And believe me, it was plentiful. And I just thought, this is it. This is the bee's knees. I'm getting drunk all the time. I'm staying. You can drink till 4:30 in the morning in New York, and I love that. And I had a pretty good job, and I was going to school, and I was making pretty decent money. And I was just like, this is it. I had arrived. This is the life that I want, and it has to get better because I want more, because this isn't enough. And it didn't get any better, ever. And so eventually I went upstate to a real university, and there my drinking took on more serious proportions. And I was definitely a daily drinker. And after a while, I had a very, very serious fake injury. Got on pain management, milked that for all it was worth. Eventually that progressed to intravenous drug use, and a lot of bad things and consequences and seriousness happened in a very short time. And me and the girl I was with crashed and burned and had to go to treatment. And I went to detox, and I just wanted to feel better. And when I got there, they told me that I can't drink anymore. And I said, I did not sign up for that. All I want to do is come in, get better, and I want my old life back. Really, I just want to go out there, have the good old times, and some of the seriousness of the things that I've been doing had been hammered into me. So I went into AA and I said, I'll try this out. And I tried it out, and I did all the things that they told me to do, go to 90 meetings in 90 days. So I did that, get a sponsor. So I got a sponsor, get a home group, get a commitment. So I did that, started making coffee. And, I just wanted to drink. And I told this, I'm going to, stay away from the hard stuff, and I'll just, I'll be all right. And I'm telling people I want to drink. And they're like, well, you're an alcoholic. You're supposed to want to drink. I was like, okay. I was like, I really want to drink. And I'm like, don't worry about it, kid. Keep coming. I was like, okay, I won't. And I didn't. And I left. And what I basically did is I told myself that I'm going to go to this thing in New York City. It's a 3-day-long freaky Halloween event in New York, and I'm going to drink. And I'm going to go, and I'm going to have a great time. And if it gets bad, I'll just go back to AA. Right? Makes sense, right? I have awesome plans, by the way. And so that was my plan. So I go, and I drink, and I get a really good drink on. I have a great time. This is a girl with a giant purple mohawk who's a fetish model who I'd had a crush on for like 6 months. I talked and schmoozed and danced with her. And I roughed house with the guys. I danced with the girls. I didn't get shot. I didn't get kicked out. I didn't get into a fight. I didn't get arrested. I drove home. I didn't get pulled over. Fine. Lots of crazy stuff happened. They should make movies about nights like that. And it was I can't even get it. I'm not from the podium. Anyway, it was just crazy. And I had a great time. It's like, oh yeah, where are all those consequences? You go back out, it's going to get worse. I don't think so. Well, it says in this here book, in the chapter More on Alcoholism, that at times it seems like we may have regained control. Okay, here I am, going out, have a great time, right? Now, those times, usually brief, are always followed by less control, which lead in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. And that's exactly what happened. I stayed up for 6.5 years. Eventually I got back, I became, very shortly thereafter, I became a daily drinker yet again. I went upstate. Eventually I actually even graduated from that college that I had been thrown out of. Even got a 3.5. I'm like, yes, I rule. And being a daily drinker, by the way, and I told myself everything's going to get better as soon as I get out of this town. As soon as I get out of this town, everything's going to be fine, as soon as I graduate. And I did. I graduated, and I became a 24/7 round-the-clock drinker. I couldn't go for more than 4 hours without a drink. I woke up every morning either drunk from the night before or the onsets of delirium tremens. The mind and body are marvelous mechanisms because mine endured this agony for another 2 years. And a domino of events happened that kind of led to me coming to Vermont. And I now live in New Hampshire, but I came to Vermont. The first of which is I was drinking. I had phoned a friend, and he hadn't gotten back to me, so I started drinking. I was very mad at my girlfriend, and she was passed out on the couch, so whatever it was clearly her fault. And I drank a bottle of Wild Turkey 101, and I drank it as a liter, and I drank it in about an hour, and which is a little fast even for me. And my friend had called me back, and he said he had scored some dope, and I said, that sounds like a fantastic idea. And I stumbled over to his house, and I shot up, and I fell over, I turned blue, I stopped breathing, and I died. They called my girlfriend at the time, said, dial 911, come over and get him. She did that. I came to, coming out of her car and going into the ambulance, and they gave me Narcan, which takes all the opiates out of your system, just like that. And I distinctly remember, my first thought was, thank God. Whoa, thank God. I'm still drunk. Whoa. It says in the doctor's opinion, while I admit it is injurious, I cannot differentiate the true from the false. Obviously, it's injurious, meaning it causes me harm. I woke up in an ambulance, but I cannot differentiate the true from the false. So it's not like, how did I get here? How's my life come to this? Thank God I'm still drunk. And I went off to the ambulance, and I stayed for 45 minutes. High five, doc. Way to go. Thanks for saving me. Let me go home. I left AMA. I went home. I drank the rest of my alcohol, and then I shot the rest of my dope. Because I can't not. I can't not. That's what's wrong with me. And I didn't know that at the time. I was just craving it. I was like, oh, I can't wait to get phenomenon of craving. I have this abnormal reaction. Once I take any alcohol into my system, I can't stop. It's the allergy. Physical part. Always happens. Once it's like that, it never goes away. And I did the very same thing the next day. Very same thing, very next day. And because the alcoholic life seems the only normal one for me. It's all I know. I can't even remember what it's like to not be drunk. I can't remember what it's like to be happy, to be normal. I remember peeking out of my basement apartment, in little shades, the window that's that big, and just looking out during the day, and people just walking about, going to college or going to school or, going to work or whatever. It's how do people do it? I just didn't even remember what it was like. Anyway, shortly thereafter, too, another thing happened. I had left work. I worked at night, so I drank before work, during work, after work, and then I had been driving in a neighboring city with an associate, and we had I was drunk. I made stop 1 of 2 in this bad neighborhood, and I made some goofy turn. I saw the lights go up, and I was getting pulled over, and something came over me, and I don't know exactly what it was. Aha moment, spiritual experience. I don't really care, and I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't fun. This hasn't been fun for a very long time, and I hate my life, every waking moment of it. And so what was weird is the truth started spewing out of me, and if you're an alcoholic like I was, if you're going to tell the truth, don't do it to a cop. But here I was telling the truth, the only guy I didn't want to tell the truth to, and they took the other guy out of his car. He was a known felon with multiple warrants out for his arrest, and the cop looked at me and said, if I search his car, am I going to find anything? I said, uh-huh. He said, you been drinking? I said, yup. I said, all right, let's get out and show me this stuff. I showed him the stuff. It was a little bit of rock, crack cocaine. And he said, you don't even seem like you do this. And I was like, I don't. He said, you don't even seem like you're a crackhead. I said, I'm not. He said, you seem like you're a drunk and a junkie. And I was like, I am, yeah. And this cop, he knows what's up. And he said, you seem like a good kid. You just need some help. And I said, I do. And after the little heart-to-heart, I went to jail. And after staying chained to a bench for 8 hours, someone foolish enough to love me enough to she came, bailed me out, and she was so mad at me. So I've never seen her more livid in her whole life. And I got arrested in her car, which was then impounded, so she had to wake somebody else at 4 o'clock in the morning to come and get me. And when I got home, I ran to the bottle. I just ran. I had to have it. And she grabbed it out of my hand and said, what's wrong with you? You just got arrested. You don't get to drink. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't have an answer for her. I just didn't know, which was very strange because I just admitted to this police officer that, yes, I'm an alcoholic, yes, I have a problem, and yes, I need help. See, what I didn't realize at the time is she had the only solution that I've ever known in her hands, and I assure you I got my bottle back. And that's what I couldn't figure out because alcohol is a solution for alcoholism. It is. It works. I mean, eventually it stops working, makes me miserable, and will kill me and possibly, screw up everybody else's life around me. but it works. It treats what ails me, and I don't even know it. Something's wrong with me. More on the other solution in a bit. And basically, my boss had heard about both of these events. She came over to my house. She said, I love you. You need help. You're fired. I said, that sucks. And she said, on the way over here, I phoned your dad and told him everything. And I was like, oh, like I'm an adult. Come on. I graduated college. Call my dad. But basically, I had lost my job. My car's off the road. My girlfriend was fed up with me, and I could no longer live where I was living due to a bunch of other things that happened due to alcoholism. And so I was being thrown out, so I had no place to go. So I moved to Vermont with mom and dad, and I desperately needed treatment. And so I went into my another detox, and I was only able to stay for 2.5 days. I left sick and shaking, and they wouldn't pay for any aftercare, no detox, no halfway house, no therapy, no nothing. I said, it's all right. I'm going to go back to AA. I want this. I'm done. I'm never going to drink again. I don't like it at all. I'm through. And so I left detox and I went to AA, and I got this awesome home group, these lovely people, and I took all the suggestions that were thrown around meetings, get a sponsor, do 90 meetings in 90 days, and I did that, get a home group, get a commitment, so I made coffee, and I was stacking chairs and doing all this stuff and all this great stuff, and I was feeling a little better. And then after I had 6 months to the day, and I couldn't believe it. I had never been sober for 6 months, and probably since I was 14 years old, and I relapsed. And I thought that was strange. I thought that was very strange because I really wanted this like nothing else. And so, you know what, I had a weak moment. That's what it was. So I'll redouble my efforts. So I went to more meetings, made more coffee, and I called more alcoholics, and I talked to my sponsor more, and then I drank again. And then I drank again. And then I drank again. And again. And again. And one of those relapses sums up what is wrong with me. The physical and the mental. And so I went to 3 meetings in one day, which is really tough to do in Southern Vermont. And before the meeting, during the meeting, after the meeting, I told people, I want to drink. I just want to drink. And I raised my hand, I want to drink. And I called my sponsor, and I did all the things. And I heard a lot of things at those meetings, especially the last one, that I know were said by loving people who wanted to help me. But the truth of the matter is, those things are not the truth for me. They do not help a real alcoholic. And they told me that meeting makers make it, and I've been making it to an awful lot of meetings, and I kept drinking. And they told me to put the plug in the jug. My only problem is, my experience is I put the plug in the jug. After a while, I take it out, and I drink it, and I go get another jug because I can't not. If I wanted to stop drinking, I would just stop drinking. I can't. And they said, well, just don't drink and go to meetings. So I was like, okay, well, the only thing is, I can drink and come to meetings if you want me. I've done that plenty of times. You want me to drink and come to meetings? Here I am, And they said, Jeremy, just don't drink no matter what. Oh, I love that one. The only thing is, my experience is I drink no matter what. No matter what. Good times, bad times, I can't not. That's what it means to be powerless over alcohol. No matter how much this is the baffling feature of alcoholism as I know it, this utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish. So no matter how much I want to stay sober, I can't. No matter how much I need to stay sober, I cannot. Now, so for some people, they come into AA and they just stop drinking, and there's a lot of people actually like that. There's something here that changes us. I get it, but I couldn't. And so I went to 3 meetings, and one day I got outside, I looked downtown, and I'm looking at, downtown Brattleboro, and I'm seeing all those bars, and I'm like, man, I want to drink. I just really want to drink, and but I can't drink it. Even if I wanted to drink, someone from AA would see me. And suddenly the thought crossed my mind: there's a bar in Northampton. They're open till 2 a.m. I can drink there, and no one will see me. Done. Problem solved. See, this is the thing that I have. I have the mind of a chronic alcoholic that makes up reasons that I can go and drink, and so it just flips the truth. It's called the peculiar mental twist. I have these mental blank spots that I cannot remember the consequences that inevitably follow from drinking, that have happened in the past and that will happen in the future. I just don't remember. I don't even think about it half the time. Like, I remember one of the relapses, I had been sober for 2 weeks, and then I was like, the obsession to drink was so strong, I was like, well, I've been only sober for 2 weeks. I could just, go drink tonight and get it out of my system, and I'll just come back and make it up. Like I'm a kid talking about snow days at the end of the year. Does that make any sense? The first time I relapsed, I stayed up for 6.5 years. I went to jail, I was institutionalized, and I died. Does that sound like a good idea to keep drinking? No. It's the brain of a chronic alcoholic. Hi. Yep. And so I'm suffering from this because I don't know it, because I go to how important meetings are, and you should keep going to them. And they are important. Service is important. But those alone will not keep me sober. Anyway, so I'm looking at all these bars. Eventually, I make the decision that I'm going to go to this bar in Northampton. I'm already on my way home. I'm going to go home, change my clothes, and just go. The only problem is my obsession was so strong, I had to drink the first thing that was in front of me, which was a bottle of Listerine. The other problem, that's the mental obsession. The problem, my physical part, the allergy that I was talking about is once I take any alcohol into my system, I can't stop. So I drank a second bottle of Listerine. And believe me, the first one wasn't good. I stopped at the package store, drank 2 tall boys, went to the bar, yelled at the bartender for not serving me fast enough. I closed that bar at 2 a.m, went home, drank everything in sight, and I woke up the next morning wondering how it all happened. I went to 3 meetings in one day. I called my sponsor. I raised my hand. What's wrong with me? Why is everyone else staying sober and I cannot? Well, what was wrong with me is that I was in a 12-step spiritual program and I refused to take any actions to live on a life based on spiritual principles. It says in We Agnostics, to be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live life based on spiritual principles are not always easy alternatives to face. And it was very true with this alcoholic. When I came here, I was, as also described in We Agnostics, I was violently anti-religious. I was extremely opposed to any spirituality. I bragged about how my tattoo artist was a Satanist. I used to dry patch churches, getting out in the morning, listening to black metal very, very loudly. I used to, there are children here, you know what, in church basements. And all sorts of things, anything that I could throw in the face of spirituality and religion. And when people would talk about it, I would literally get bristle with an antagonism. I'm not going to have it. The first time I went to AA, I said I'd rather die. I'd rather die than believe in your fake God. I'd rather die. And which is weird because that's exactly what happened. And I got back to AA and I still wouldn't have it. And people are talking to me about this spirituality. They're asking me to pray. And I'm like, no, just right in their face, spite, no. And they're telling me about these 12 steps, which, they say God. I remember my first meeting, my first detox, I saw God. I was like, what the heck does God have to do with my drinking? Please. And I wouldn't have it. And there was one point that, I hadn't done any of the work, by the way. There was one point that people were talking about, oh, your higher power can be anything you want. And I'm like, that's dumb. Yeah, I really had an open mind, by the way. And they said, oh, it can be a light bulb. I was like, well, that doesn't make sense because light bulbs burn out and it just made me want to break all the lights anyway. Like, smash, God is dead. And it can be a doorknob. Well, doorknobs rust and they break and just, be anything. And there was one time, a fleeting moment that I had an idea. I'm a really big dork. And has anyone ever seen the movie Star Wars? Yeah? Okay. So I thought, well, maybe I'll make the Force my higher power, right? What I did not realize at the time is it talks about, in this book, how to find a relationship with God, right? I didn't know that. I didn't read it in this book. It actually talks about, does anyone remember in the movie Obi-Wan Kenobi is saying that, well, the Force is what it gives a Jedi Knight, his power. Yeah. And it says in this book, lack of power, that is my dilemma. I must find a power that is greater than myself in which I can live. It talks about, the Force is created by all living things. Okay? God is everything or God is nothing. That's what it says in the book. It surrounds us. It binds us. It penetrates us. The Force does that. It says in this book, the analogy of God, like a wind of a clean mountaintop blowing through and through. Bill Story. Right? It even talks, it's created by all living things. It binds the galaxy together. The Force does, right? It talks about in this book, as referring to God as the spirit of the universe, right? Huh. Look at that. That would have fit. And also, William James, who's quoted twice in this book, wrote this book called The Variety of Religious Experiences, in that he describes a multitude way of people that have discovered God. In the back of that book, he describes this one godlike power as the more, capital M-O-R-E, more. Force, well, the definition of force is power. More is large or greater than. More, force, sounds like a recipe for power greater than yourself. Look at that. But I didn't read that book. Nobody was talking about that book when I got sober. And what I told myself, Jeremy, that's stupid. Don't tell anyone that. That's just dumb. And if you do, that means they'll won. That means they've broken you. That you really are one of those dumb religious saps that you've always hated. Sell out. And so what I did was, I didn't do anything. And then I drank again. And then I drank again. And then I drank again. And the last relapse that I had lasted for 3 weeks. I found it ended with me drunk, locked in my parents' bathroom, and I had been puking blood and stomach bile had been seeping out of my tear ducts, and I didn't know what was wrong with me because I didn't want to drink, and I kept drinking. And I called my grant sponsor at the time, and I told him to meet me at the meeting early. I met him. And we went in this little children's playroom off to the side so we could talk. It was wicked embarrassing. I was a little Fisher-Price table, 18 inches off the ground. And I was sitting in this thing talking to him. And I was dirty, hadn't showered in I don't know how long. I was covered in all sorts of bodily fluids. And I was gross. And I reeked of alcohol. And it wasn't working. And I just flat out told him, I was like, I can't stop. I can't stop. And he asked me to do the one thing that I was not willing to do. He said, pray with me. And I said, okay. And we got on our knees, and I held his hand, and I have no idea if he said anything. I don't know if I spoke it or if I thought it. I said, please, please, please help me. I just can't keep doing this. Please help me. And I walked out of that room a free man. I have not had the obsession, desire, compulsion from that moment to this. It's gone. Quite important was the discovery that spiritual principles would solve all of my problems. So, to sum up, this is a little part in how it works. It's often read in AA meetings. A, I was alcoholic and could not manage my own life. B, probably no human power could relieve me of my alcoholism, and C, that God could and would if he were sought. And he did. And I believe that if I had left my sobriety up to that one spiritual experience, I would have been drunk long before now. And I emerged from that with a firm resolution to be one of his guys, not wanting to admit it and not having any idea of how to do it. No clue. And everybody told me to keep coming and meeting makers make it and just don't drink and go to meetings. And I said, no, what's next? And they said, don't worry about it, kid, keep coming. I said, what's next? And they said, whoa, easy does it. And I said, no, I don't do well. What's next? And I tried to work the steps on my own. My sponsor had moved away, and I really had no clue what I was doing. I actually made a muck of myself. I really recommend doing the steps with a sponsor who has done the same. Eventually, I ran into a guy whose whole deportment, it talks about it in here, his whole deportment shouts, here's a man with a real answer. And that guy today is my 10th-step buddy. And he told me to go to this meeting and see this man. And that meeting is now my home group, the Big Book Step Study meeting in Keene, New Hampshire. We meet at 5 in Keene to 6:30. And I met that man, and I heard him speak one week, then I heard him speak the next week. And I'm just sharing in a meeting, and I said, I'm going to ask that man to sponsor me. And I left that Sunday meeting. I said, I'm going to ask him next week. 8, and it was Sunday night. 8 a.m. Monday morning, I got that guy's, I texted my buddy. I was like, give me this guy's freaking number right now. And he did, and I called him up. I said, will you sponsor me? Will you take me through steps? And he said, yes. He said he'd be honored. I said, awesome. What's next? You ready to keep it simple? Cool. I got 10 minutes left. Crap. What's next? He said, well, next, I want you to read the doc's opinion, page 63. Stop where I tell you to stop. I want you to underline things that are important, significant to you, streak out to you that you can identify with. Look up words, circle words that you don't know the definitions to, and look them up in the margins. So I did that. And when you're done, we'll read it together. And I did that, and when we were done, we read it together. Eventually, we came to the 3rd step prayer, and I got on my knees and held his hand and offered myself to God as I then understood him. And I don't have to understand God. You don't have to understand it. I don't understand it today. It's just keep an open mind, be willing. I don't even care to debate what God looks like, what it don't care. Trust in the line of God works out just fine. So I got up off my knees after that, I put pen to paper, wrote my 4th step, wrote for about 90 minutes on average every day, and I did it for 11 months. It was 2,200 pages long. When I was all done, I read it to him. It took me about 70 hours to do that. Then I went home, took an hour with God, did 6 and 7. It's clearly saying that of myself, I cannot be free of these things, and I offer them all to God. Whatever's left, I have to deal with, and that's what I do. After that, I made a list of all the people I had harmed, became willing to make amends to them all. It was a rather lengthy one. I'm still making amends, and I practiced 10, 11, and 12 every day to the best of my ability, which is taking personal inventory, making amends as I go along, praying and meditating throughout the day, ending my day and beginning my day, carrying this message to the best of my ability, and practicing these principles in all my affairs. And I have had a spiritual awakening as the result. I'm not the same. Now, I'm not all better, but I'm better. And they tell me if I continue to do this, I will get better still. I have less than 8 minutes. Okay. I would like to share a few things that come about of parts of the spiritual awakening that I've experienced that really just explain to me what it's like living and trusting and relying on God. Because that's what, like, as an alcoholic, it's not like, it'd be nice to, have a spiritual way of life. Just bottom line is I need God. I cannot exist without a God in my life. Now, I don't really walk up to newcomers and be like, you need to get with God, because that's just not reality. I just tell them to have an open mind. And if they're willing to do this, you will find something that works for you. How simple is that? Because I looked at God and I had a whole bunch of ideas about God, and I'm not going to do any of that crap. And I kept drinking. Start living and trusting and relying on God. All better. Not all better, but, better. I remember one experience I had. I was in the middle of writing my 4th step, and I was over at my sister's house because she was mad at me because I never visit. And I'm like, I don't want to be here. I'm busy. I should be writing, and it stinks. Like, it smells. Like, she has a dog and it smells. It's filthy. She has a baby. It smells. Like, I don't want to be here. And it was funny. I was actually airing one of my oldest and deepest resentments because she was talking about how mom and dad are around for Lucian, but they were never around her boy, her little boy. He was 1.5, but they were never around for us. And I was like, yeah. And I'm going into it. And I'm like dragging out that old resentment. I'm throwing it all over the place, because they were busy and they was always working. And they didn't care, and they didn't read to me They didn't read at night, maybe every now and then, but I wasn't read to. And you know what? If I was read to, I would have been a better reader. And if I was a better reader, I wouldn't have been left back in 2nd grade. And if I wasn't left back in 2nd grade, then my twin brother, who had to get left back because of me, that wouldn't happen too. So I wouldn't have been stupid. It wouldn't have been all my fault and all this other stuff. And I'm going off and off and off. And all of a sudden, her little boy came up to me, and he was like this. And I'm looking at this, I was like, what? Are you serious? And she said, he wants you to read him a story. And so I took the little tyke, I put him on my knee, and I read him a story. And then he got down and grabbed another book, and he got back on and I read him another story. And then I read him another story. And this happened like 4 or 5 times. And in that moment, I got free. I saw that this resentment I had been harboring against my parents, they did the best they could. They loved us a lot. They worked a lot so they could support 3 children. And they cared for me. And not only that, did they do the best they could? And I felt a tremendous amount of love, and I felt loved. But also, I was resentful at a baby. Because he was so freely given of what I felt I was denied. And not only that, but because of my resentment, I would gladly deprive a child of nurture and love. Because screw you guys, I was gypped. And that was part of this spiritual awakening. I could see in the moment, give back. I could be the change in the world that I wanted to see rather than being pissed off about it. Because I was pissed off. I had 1,800 resentments. I was a little mad. And sad. And so, and I want another really cool, this is a family disease, right? Another really cool experience, 4 minutes left, was that I was making amends, and I made amends to my family because I was just wanted to make sure that I was ready. I was ready, but I made amends, and when I make amends, I explain the harms that I've done. I say what I would have done had I a chance to do over again. I ask if there's anything else. I ask if there's anything right. I ask for forgiveness. And when I did it to my parents, there were plenty of things that they added. And I was like, okay. And there's things that I had to do to make it right. But one of the things, and I made amends to my parents together and separately. And one of the things that my mom said, she said that all we ever wanted to do was to let you know that we loved you, and you wouldn't let us. You just wouldn't. Like my dad was like, you were angry from birth, and you never stopped. And it's just the truth. I have a twin brother. I was always pissed, angry all the time, and he wasn't. And it was very easy to compare the two. I was just always angry. I didn't know what was wrong with me. And it's just like, you're just always angry, and you would never let us love you. And so I make it right, and I go home, and I try to let them know that I'm loved. I do it on a regular basis if I can. I've been slacking a little bit, but it was just significantly important. And not only that is I can't tell the story from the podium, but my mother blamed herself for how angry I was. She blamed herself for my alcoholism and my problems with drugs and all the other problems that I experienced. She blamed herself for all of it. And in a separate conversation, we were able to say, Mom, this is just how I am. It's how I'm wired. You had absolutely nothing to do with it. If anything, you've helped. And see, in this amends process, we go out and heal, and we get to help others heal too. One more quick story. 2 minutes left. I get pretty squirrely doing this deal. Like, I'm better, but like for some reason I get really resentful or angry, or I try and run the show. I try and rule the world, and people should really do what I want because that's what I'm thinking. And the world doesn't exist like that. And actually, when I do that, I'm disconnected from God. And this one time, I was in the parking lot at Dartmouth Medical. My mom had just had surgery. We didn't know what was really going on, and I was fighting with my girlfriend, and the account that I work on at work we were losing it, and I didn't know what was going to happen with my job, and all sorts of things, and I was totally off the beam, and I'd written like in a million 10th step, and I was sharing to my 10-step buddy, and I'd called my sponsor earlier, and I was just really, really annoyed, and I threw my 10-step notebook across the room. I said, why? Why am I still so freaking crazy? And he, in his very loving voice, said, I don't know. But basically, he said the same thing to me that my sponsor said to me, that sometimes we just go through things, do the work. That's how we get through it. Regardless, we don't have to figure out why. And there is actually one reason that is always why, and always the reason why. And I'm actually going to read it. This is a family disease. And it's in the family afterward. It's on page 124, the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. So, if I'm not happy about what I'm going through, the painful past may be of infinite value to other families still struggling with their problem. We think each family which has been relieved owes something to those who have not. And when the occasion requires, each member of it should be only too willing to bring former mistakes, no matter how grievous, out of their hiding places. Showing others who suffer how we were given help is the very thing which makes life seem so worthwhile to us now. Cling to the thought that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession that you have. The key to life and happiness for others. With it, you can avert death and misery for them. So it doesn't really matter. My life is not of my own. It's my job to go out, get better, and then help others. That's the whole deal. To bring God into the lives of others as they imagine God. It's not for me to say. That's the message that I carry, that you can have a spiritual awakening as the result of these 12 steps. That's the only message I have to carry. If you want it, it's yours. We'll give it to you. If you don't, fine. If you want to keep coming, keep coming. That's the only thing that I have to offer. And it's quite a big deal. And I always tell people that, it's not easy. It's not always easy. Believe me, like, there was a lot of times that I was just like, oh my God. But it's worth it. And not only is sobriety a better way of life, but it's infinitely more rewarding and substantial. It actually says, I'll read one more thing, and then I'll close with this. It's from Bill's story. Because I always thought sobriety was going to be wicked boring and lame, And at least I wouldn't be drinking anymore. But, come on. Talk about a bunch of lamos. I'm going to read this sentence twice. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. That's actually the definition of the fourth dimension in this book. That doesn't sound so bad. It doesn't sound so boring. I'm going to read it one more time. I'm going to tell you what the key word in this sentence is for me. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life. It's not and a way of life. It is in this way of life. It is in this way of life, and going out to meetings and helping others and going to jails and detoxes and institutions and sponsoring guides, which I do, and make myself available always to do again. It's in this way of life, meditating and praying and turning everything that I have over to God. If he wants to take my job, take it. Well, my life is not of my own. It is his to do with as he sees fit. This is that third step prayer. And I carry out the actions to support that decision on a daily basis throughout the day. And then life's good. That's golden. So all the stuff that I tell myself that I need, it doesn't matter if I have it or not. having God in my life, that's the underlying feeling from that spiritual experience to this. It's the overwhelming feeling that everything's going to be okay. And that's all I got. Thank you very much. God bless, and may the force be with you.